Hi guys, welcome to the 4th episode of Talk Crazy to Me. I'm your host Tanya, and today my guest is Sue Jen. Hi Sue Jen.
Hi Tanya.
How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good, I'm good. Thank you so much for doing this.
Of course.
I really, I always reach out like to people that I feel like I want, and I see, we know each other, but I see your social media posts, I see things that you kind of put out there, and I just had, I felt like your energy would be really great for this. Okay. So that's why I reached out, and I love that you said yes right away. So that always is a good sign.
Okay, good.
So I always start off by asking people how we know each other. So do you want to say how we know each other?
Yeah, okay. So we met in high school, grade 10.
Yeah.
Grade 10 French.
Yeah.
And I would be lying if I said I remembered Madame's name, but it was a Madame.
Yeah, Madame, yeah.
Do you know what I was thinking, though? When I thought of this was that I don't remember any of my teachers' names in high school because we always used to call them Miss or Madame.
Yeah.
Or sir. But I remember like my grade 1.
Yeah.
My grade 2. Like all
your
elementary because we used to call them by name.
Yes. You know what? That is true. I think in high school you kind of tend to drop the last name a little bit, but I'm not good at remembering any of my teachers, to be honest. Even the younger ones. My brother and my sister remember like almost all their teachers. I am one of those people that doesn't remember a lot of... I'm bad with names in general.
Faces?
I remember their faces. Faces I never forget.
Yeah.
And like if I liked them or didn't like them or had a good relationship or bad relationship, I'll remember that. But but names, even people's, just not in teachers, but people in general, I have a hard time with names. Faces, I will never forget. I will never forget. So high school, yes. High school French. I feel like most of our classes together were French.
It was all French.
Right? Like
every year.
Every year. Well, and I what I remember from French class, this is going to sound whatever, but what I remember, it was me, you, and Elena all the time.
Yeah.
And we were kind of like the ones that stood out a little bit. Like it was a very academic, like smart, sort of nerdy group. And we stuck out as like sort of the nerds of the non-nerds, if that makes sense. Like we were like the ones that were like, we kind of fit in, but we didn't fit in.
We didn't fit in.
We didn't fit in, but we did well. We always did really well.
Grades.
We did good grades, but we were outcasts in that class for sure. We were like the troublemakers.
And we sat in the very front. Why?
I know why. Did we always sit in the front? Because we were always talking and getting in trouble for talking. So I don't know why we sat in the front, but we did. But yeah, that's what I remember. I remember French class, and they were fun. They were fun classes. We had a fun time, but I do remember feeling a little bit like the outsiders in that class for some reason. Always.
When I reflect back, I definitely recognize that we were, but I didn't feel like that at the time.
I did at the time.
No,
I did at the time because I just felt like, I don't know. I don't know why I did. I just did. But okay, so my first question to you is, what makes you crazy? What makes you crazy? What sticks out in your mind when you hear that question?
Oh, I guess we could go right now.
Yeah.
In life.
Yeah.
Just a certain sense of, I feel like I've been duped.
Okay.
And not prepared
accurately. Okay.
I feel like I did good well in school.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? For the most part. And I just don't know if I was adequately prepared for life.
I don't think school adequately prepares you for anything.
Anyone for life,
to be honest.
Right?
Yeah, no, there's so much missing. There's so much missing. Yeah. Yeah.
So right now I just feel a little bit stuck. Like in just not knowing where to go or what to do. And there's a lot of reasons for that, I think, but that's pretty much what I'm going through right now.
Right. Stuck in the way that like in like your personal life, professional life, both.
All of the above.
All of the above. But I think sometimes being stuck, I'm just going to say this, I think sometimes being stuck is the way you find your way out because you realize what you don't want, right? So when you get to that point where you realize, because I've been there too, where you realize what you don't want, that's the start to figuring out what you do want, I think. Of course. So I think that there's a way out of that sort of cloud, but it can be a little bit daunting to be there and to feel stuck. Yeah. But to not know, I don't know. I think of it as a positive in some ways to getting out of it. In a way,
for sure.
Right?
Well, I'm generally optimistic and also pretty laid back.
Yeah.
So sometimes I think that can be perceived as like a lack of effort. But no, I see what you mean, and I agree. I think that I'm just looking for different avenues or where to go because right now I just feel kind of stagnant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you feel like there's something that you are trying to get to, like a direction you're trying to get to and you feel stuck, or do you just feel like you don't, like lost in it, like you don't know where to go? Or is it like I have a direction, I know where I want to go, I don't know how to get there?
I guess there is sort of like a direction in which I know I want to go. There's a certain fear like with that, right?
Yep.
And then when we go back to, so that's more so career. And then when we go back to personal side, I just think that I thought my life was going to be in a completely different place than where it is right now.
Right.
So I don't really know how much you know, but
I don't know a lot, to be honest. So I would love to know.
So I guess probably about 3 years separated now.
Okay.
So in my mind, I was still supposed to be married and kind of going down that path.
Sure.
And so that is a big life choice.
Sure.
Like choosing your partner, who to marry, who to spend your life with.
Yep.
And so my whole life is kind of like
turned upside down.
Completely looks differently now.
Yeah. So 3 years out.
Yeah.
And you're feeling how now? In 3 years.
It's weird because when, like, in the last stages of it, it was very challenging. Like, I almost was, like, numb, so I felt like nothing.
Yeah.
And then when I got out of it, it was like a weight lifted.
Sure.
But then there's still, like, sadness. There's a lot of sadness with it because you still miss the person.
Of course.
And I mainly look at it from my kid's perspective. So there's that element, which is like a constant emotional roller coaster.
Of course. For the kids. It's always the kids. I mean, they're your priority, right? So what they're feeling is going to be what you're feeling. And then you take that on, and it's probably a lot of pressure to sort of get them into a good place with it. And it can take time and a lot of things.
Sometimes, like, I think I might feel things that I assume they might be feeling, but they're not. Like, so I'm probably projecting some of my own ish onto them.
Sure.
Because they could be fine, but I'm just like I had a conversation with both my girls, and I was just asking them just about their feelings and such. And they said, well, this was my older daughter.
How old is she? Sorry.
Now she's 15.
15. Wow. Yep.
I know.
Okay.
And she said, like, I was just asking her how she feels when she's away, how she feels when she's here or at home with me.
Yeah.
And it was there's no right answer because she said when she's with me, she misses dad. And then when she's with him, she misses me. So what do you do with that?
Yeah.
You're always missing someone. Like, that's horrible.
Yeah.
So I hated that.
Yeah, that's a hard answer because it does make you feel very much like, how do you fix that?
How do you remedy that?
Yeah, for them. And then what was your youngest? What was her response?
It's the same.
The same?
Yeah. I think with my older girl, it's a little easier because we can communicate a lot better because she has her cell phone and such.
Yeah.
But my youngest doesn't really have that. So a lot of times when they're home with me, it's like she's communicating with her father through my older daughter because she has the cell phone.
Yeah.
And then it's very similar when they're away.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think there's so much involved with what a child goes through, I think, when their parents separate. You know, breakups are hard no matter what, but I think when someone sees a positive come out of it or some positives come out of it, it can then, I think, get easier. But I think as they get older too, because they're still younger too, and still, you know, I think kids think it's hard to not have their mom and dad be together, I guess. But there's positives that can come out of it, and I think they're going to be, you know, better and stronger because of it. So it just takes some time still, and 3 years is, you know, it's new. It's new still. It's new still. It's a different life than what they've been living before that, right?
Yes.
So that shift takes time
to adapt.
But yeah. Okay, so speak a little bit about your professional. What does that look like? What are the dreams? What are the fears? What are, like, speak to me a little bit about that.
like I just think that when you go through schooling, we are trained to believe in that like 9 to 5 dream, and I just feel like that is just not me.
Me too.
I've tried, and it's for many reasons.
Yeah.
Some of which have nothing to do with the actual job. A lot of it has to do with, and I struggled a lot with this in school as well, but just the hierarchy of things and how things operate.
Yeah.
The politics. I don't enjoy politics.
Me too.
Like not even watching it on TV.
Yeah,
Okay.
me too.
So when all of that is sort of distracting from you being able to effectively do your role.
Yep.
And then I look around and I'm like, am I crazy? Like, how is everybody else just ignoring this?
Yes.
And operating from this space of like, how are you okay with what's happening here?
Right.
You know what I mean?
No.
And then so it just makes me feel kind of off.
Sure.
And just, like some people will be like, oh, just ignore that. Like, they're just saying what they have to say because they can't, that's what they have to say from their position. And that may be valid, but I just, it's very difficult for me to ignore. It's very difficult.
I can completely, it's funny because you can be in a completely different field and feel the exact same way because there's politics in everything.
Everywhere.
So to get away from it is very difficult. But I will say that doing your own thing, like I think when people have that spirit like you have, the 9 to 5 doesn't work because you're not able to be like pigeonholed into something and you're probably just meant to do something greater and like probably to be your own boss as well, because I think a lot of times when you're not able to conform into the bubble that they want you to be in, the box that they want you to fit in. And I felt the same way in school. School did the exact same thing. It's designed to try to make you fit into the box. And then when you don't, you feel like you're crazy, but it's actually just because you're probably too authentic of a person to kind of fit the mold that they are looking for and try to be that person, that picture perfect person. You're not really a human being. You're just a number, right? In that way. And I think that's a really difficult place to be. And I always struggled with the politics of the school board. Even with the mental health facility I worked with before the school board, it was the same thing. I thought the politics were bad there. Then I went to the school board. I'm like, oh my God, they're even worse. Like, where am I getting, how do I get away from it? And the only way I got away from it is by starting to do my own thing where I was, my own boss. And then it felt a little, it was scarier and like riskier and all of the above. But mentally, I felt so much better. And I knew that I needed to get out in order to get away from that, like, drama of how things are in a sort of big box or big company or whatever, however you look at it. I think the bigger the company and the bigger the thing is, then the worse the politics are.
That's true.
So getting out and trying to do my own thing while it was scary and risky, I felt so much better. And I knew that I was doing the right thing. And then getting into like acting where even if there were politics, they don't bother me as much. Like as much as when I was in the school board and it was politics around kids, I was like, this is crazy. Like, how do you put a kid at, to me, it was like the hierarchy would be there and then you wouldn't be doing what the kid needed. You'd be doing what the system needed. And I was like, that's not going to work for me. Yeah. So I think knowing that and getting away from it is really important if you feel that way. Because some people are totally fine with doing it. Like you work with those people that are just like you said, ignore it or do this or whatever. Like, and it's like, that's what they have to say. It's like, why do they have to say it? Like you literally go through the motion of like, I don't belong here if this is what I have to think and feel and act. So I think when you know that, getting out of it is a good thing, right?
Yeah. But then it's just sort of because, as I was saying earlier, about being inadequately prepared. If I knew this, I think I would have made different choices. Do you know
100%.
what I mean?
100%.
And I will say that there is something to be said for not being prepared and being able to play that game very well, because all the people that I was working with, like, they seem to be masterminding the game, right?
Sure.
And I'm like, yeah, no. It's not even like I couldn't. It's just, it's very hard emotionally or mentally. Do you know what I
Mentally and
mean?
emotionally to be someone you're not every day. That's why I got into acting, because I was like, if I'm going to be acting, I want to be people know I'm acting.
Yeah.
Not pretending in my everyday life to be someone I'm not.
Yeah.
So that's what really shifted me. But yeah, that's it's your authenticity that shows when you're like that, because really you just can't play the game because the game is bullshit.
It's soul-sucking.
It's soul-sucking. It's absolutely soul-sucking. I agree. So what is it that I know you're into photography. Is that your passion? Is that where you want to keep going in that direction?
I want to keep going in that. There's a couple things. I don't know if I want to say, but there's a couple things.
Yeah.
But that's a big one.
That's the big one.
It's just, I think I've been thinking a little small in that regard in terms of, like, just portrait. Like, I do want to do bigger things with that.
Yeah.
Like on a grander scale.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
I think that's what I
somewhere.
find fun. Because I actually like the production and like the makeup and like all that's what I enjoy.
Yeah.
So without that, I don't know if I would like it as much.
Yeah.
But I do it still.
Yep.
I also enjoy so it's weird because I also enjoy like capturing the emotional side of it, right? So it doesn't really need to be overproduced in that way.
Sure.
But no, for sure, first and foremost is like all that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's good. I love that. And I had the pleasure of like working with you that time when we did our photo shoot, and that was so much fun. And you can definitely see the passion that you have for it when you're doing it and you're in your mode. Because I remember you even saying to me, you're like, I'm not going to like really talk to you that much. I'm just going to be in it. And I was like, no, that's cool. Like, go for it. And it just felt very natural and very comfortable. And we'd never worked together that way before, but it felt like, you know what I mean? It made sense.
Yeah.
So I really enjoyed it, and I think the passion for it is what will sort of keep you going.
Yes.
In it, because it can be hard to break into something that's very, new in a sense of like you said, away from the politics, but just doing something you love.
Yeah.
Mentally makes you feel so much better, but there's risk involved in doing something that
and
way.
There's still responsibilities. Like, I still need to make money somehow,
Exactly.
right? So, and I can use some business knowledge and that sort of thing. So
yeah, is that anything
That's
you've
what
thought
I'm-
about, like doing like courses and stuff like
Yeah,
that to
for
get?
sure.
Yeah, yeah. That's a good idea.
Yes.
Because then the business aspect of it is probably like you have the passion for the craft, but then the business aspect is something
Mandatory.
Is mandatory, but it's like it doesn't necessarily
as
come
fun.
naturally, and it's not as fun. It's definitely not as fun. Yeah. But yeah, that's good. So that's personal and professional. But you talked about fears. What kind of fears do you feel like you have with it? Is it just like the financial aspect of it, or is it just? Is there anything else?
The thing is that I actually do not fear being incapable. Like, I know I can do it, and I know I can be good at it. I guess it's more like the external pressures,
Sure.
but like not majority of people, because I could care less about
Yeah.
majority of people.
Yeah.
It's just significant individuals,
Sure.
you know, like people that matter. If you don't have if they don't see your vision, sometimes it's hard to push through that.
It is.
Yeah, like, so people like parents, or
Yes.
like if you're in a relationship, husbands, or like
Sure.
things like that. Like, when it's coming from those spaces, it's like,
Parents are hard.
yeah,
That I struggled with as well. Both my parents, I think, really wanted me to stay in the steady, stable 9 to 5 for the good benefits and the pension and all that garbage. Not garbage, it's good things, but it's the things that keep you there.
Yeah.
And so there was a lot of fear from them of me getting into something that was completely, risky and
unknown.
yeah. So I think that was, for me, I think parents are hard because they're such, like, even though we're grown, they still have that influence on us, right? They still have that, like, you want them to be proud of you, I think. So when you're going to a different path, it scares them, and maybe, like, they don't understand it completely. So you have to kind of, like, vouch for yourself in a way. But I think it really does when you start to get where you're going, that's when they start to see it. I think they need to see it a little bit more for them to understand it.
Yeah.
But what I can say to that is, like, you have to listen to your own voice, because nobody knows what's making you happy and what makes you tick more than you. It's the outer influences, like you said, the close people to you. You want them to support you, but they will. They will. And, like, they will eventually get there. It's just they need to see the vision. They need to see the vision, and they need to see it come to life, because you can say it and they don't necessarily get it until they see it, I think. And they say that with a lot of successful people, like a lot of artists, especially. They'll say, like, oh, you know, my parents just wanted me to be a doctor or a lawyer or whatever. Yeah. And when I was getting into this acting thing, or, you know, musicians or anything that's, like, sort of outside of that. Artsy. And outside of that realm of sort of that, you know, steady income, it can be scary. But then when they're successful, they'll be like, their parents are their biggest supporters or their number one fans or whatever. So I think it's just a matter of pushing through some of those ideas of what your parents thought your life was going to look like and what you want your life to look like. It can be very different sometimes.
100%. And it's like, you know, they support you. Like, for me, I feel the support. Yeah. It's just sometimes, you know, when you're having your moments of doubt and you don't have any additional support, it's like you kind of have to pull from yourself. So that can be challenging as well.
It can be, because you're relying more on yourself than you probably normally would have in the past. And it's a scary thing, but I think it really is the challenge that you need to push yourself forward in something that can be scary and challenging, but super rewarding, because it's what you love and what you're passionate about. So it's a completely different lifestyle. But I think the happiness, at least for me, I can only speak for myself, but the happiness I feel doing something that brings me peace and brings me joy, and that's more rewarding than any dollar amount that I could think of. Yeah. And then hopefully the money comes, is what I hope. But but again, you're right. There's external factors of, like, paying the bills, and, you know, you have kids that you have to worry about and things that you have to worry about. So those can sort of start to get into your head a little bit, I think. Yeah, and it can become harder. And stifle the dream in a way. But I don't know. I'm a big dreamer, so I always just believe in continuing to sort of push through, and that there's sort of room for everybody. I think you just have to find your way and never give up on it. And it can be multitasking. Like, sometimes it's like, okay, I have to do another job while I'm doing this to kind of balance both until I can do the one I want more. Yeah. Like, there's ways around it, but that too can be exhausting and challenging, because you're trying to do so much at once, and you wish you could just focus on the one, but it's not always possible. Feasible.
And then for me too, it's like, then there's, like, that time that I need to be home. Well, I don't need to be, but it's like I would like to be home with my kids as well, so it's hard.
It's a lot to balance in one person and one human being and one life and everything like that. But yes, it's very, it can be rewarding and challenging. But I think what you touched upon with the fear and the external factors, those are important things to talk about, because I think everybody has those challenges, but it's not always spoken about to kind of like, how do you get through that? And circling back to what you said in the beginning, like, we're in school. Why are we not prepared for these things? And why are we not teaching people how to, you know, go for their passions, or how to deal with their mental health, or how to deal with politics in the job? Why do we not talk about those things when we know that's everything we're going to deal with when we're an adult? We almost, like, try to, like, sugarcoat it in a sense. Like, going into the business and work field can be so much fun, and you'll find your, you know what I mean, your way. Glamorized. But no one tells you the nitty gritty, I think.
No. Part of me thinks it's by design. And I think that, like, if they prepared everyone, then everyone would be trying to do maybe entrepreneurial. Like, there's no space for everybody. Put it like, I mean, like, for that, or maybe it doesn't support the society which we live in. right? So somebody has to work. And so I think by the lack of preparation, some people will find their way, and that will give you sort of the grit that's required, or yeah, just to be able to figure that out. Because if you can't figure that out, then maybe it's not for you. That's what I'm trying to realize.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
I think so too. I think when you realize that it's not working for you, then it's time to try to do something else. But doing that something else can be a challenge. And how you get there and what you do to get there, no one can prepare you for that. That's all on you to figure out what it is you want to do. And
it just feels like a big jump, though. So, like,
it is
for
a
instance,
huge
like you go elementary, then middle, then high school, and it feels like a step and a step, and then
Boom.
This jump, though,
yes.
there's like a big gap there of learning, and you have to figure that out for yourself, what that looks like for you, and based on where you are in your life and how to make that all come together. It's challenging, but I think the biggest challenge is just navigating, like I was telling you, like the emotional aspect of the pressures, because I think all the other things I could kind of figure out. I think I can figure those things out.
Yeah.
But pushing through that emotional piece with like your loved ones,
Yeah.
because you care about their opinions about
Yes.
you. Like for me, I care about their opinions.
What they think.
And especially like in my life anyway, when they've been so supportive, to not have that feels like very different.
Like something's taken away from you almost. Yeah.
So, and it's not to say the support's not there, but just that lack of vision or like that inability to believe
Yes.
in what you believe in.
Yes.
Yeah. So
It's the dreamer in you that I think some people, at least for me, I find have a hard time seeing that vision because it's so outside of the norm of what I think other people see as like successful or what they envision as. Like for my parents, it was like that steady, stable job is all you need. Even though they were both kind of miserable in their jobs, they were just like, that's all you need to be successful. And I was like, that doesn't define success for me. Like success for me is happiness. Like when I'm happy going to work every day or doing what I'm doing every day, that feeds my need for the success part, and the success will follow as far as I'm concerned if you stick to it.
yeah.
But I think a lot of people don't see that. And again, it's trying to define it for yourself
Yeah.
and let other people follow as opposed to be led.
Yeah.
And that's the difference, because I think we're used to being led by our parents. And if
Yeah.
we break through and we're now doing something outside of that, they're not going to understand it until they start to see it. And then when they start to see it, then I think they'll understand
They'll be on board.
They'll be your biggest fan. I know that. But yeah, so when you talk about how to break through sort of the emotional barriers of like that, what do you find helps you to get there? To at least, because I know you speak a lot about on like social media, like affirmations and like journaling, and like those things that
those are
help.
exceptionally helpful. I've done that a lot for many years,
Yeah.
but I've just this year started to be very like every day I do it now.
Yeah.
Like I journal every day. I've missed a couple here or there, but like for
Sure.
the most part, every day. And affirmations. But more than that, I think it's about just that routine
Yeah.
in the morning.
Yeah.
And so that's really helpful. But in terms what I was thinking when you were asking that question was not that. Down that
Okay. What were you thinking?
Honestly, I just ignore it. Like I
Yeah.
just block it out, because that's pretty much the only thing I can do. I either listen and then fall in line or I block it out. So I have to block it out because it can be hurtful sometimes,
Yeah.
like some of the things that are
Yeah.
said, right?
Yep.
And if I go down that rabbit hole, then that doesn't end well, right? So it's sort of like I have to just block it out for
I
right
think
now.
that's okay. I
Yeah.
think that's good to know that that's what you need to do to follow what you want. And that ignoring is not, it's just like focusing on what is helpful and like ignoring what's not helpful. And that can be challenging, but it can be very rewarding to figure out how to block out the noise, because that noise is fear.
And then there's other things like just inviting my children to certain conversations that I definitely would not be a part of.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And having those conversations that definitely my parents did not have with us. Like, there was no... I literally sit back and wonder, like, how I, like, got through it. Like, especially the teenage years or the first years where you start, like, exploring stuff and doing things. And, like, I'm like, how did I... Because no one talked to me about anything.
Any of the
so
things.
Did I have any idea what to do when it came to, like, anything, like, sexual involved, let's say. I did not have anybody guiding me, except probably my friends who shouldn't have been guiding me because they didn't know what they were doing. So it's like, those are the conversations that I think are so important to be having, but definitely nobody was having. Like, I think some parents were talking about it, but definitely my household was not talking about it.
I don't think a lot of immigrant parents have those types of conversations. And it's coming from, like, a space of, like, that's, like, grown people.
I think it's uncomfortable for them. And I think they just stay away from it because it's uncomfortable. And they're like, oh, they'll figure it out or whatever. I don't know what they're thinking, to be honest. I never talked to my mom about it.
They think it's like, well, nobody told me.
Yeah, maybe.
And also
that can be the attitude.
Like,
yeah.
Open your eyes.
Yeah.
Because that's pretty much what I did. I opened my eyes. So sometimes when you have a lot of these conversations, sometimes you run the risk of having children who can't think.
Sure.
Right? Like,
sure.
Because that's
They'll
a struggle.
Come to you for everything.
Like, right now, I'm just like, are you really asking me this right now?
Yeah.
Like, open your eyes, right?
Yeah.
So, but I prefer that.
Sure.
Right?
Well, they're still coming to you, at least.
Yeah, I prefer that.
Yeah.
Right? So, but, yeah, I think also when you have... Yeah, like when you have parents, well, from my side anyway, like when you have parents who have had to figure out a lot on their own.
Sure. And
then also just say, like, figure out a lot on their own. Sometimes there's not even, like, that mental capacity or space to even have those conversations. You're just busy working and trying to make ends meet and, like, figure all that out. Like,
there's no time for it.
You come home and you're tired and then... you still have to tend to home. And when are we talking about these things?
Yeah.
And, like, sometimes, too, I get the impression that if we go back to, like, the sexual conversation, for instance, they're just like, what do you mean you want to talk about sex? Like, focus on your books. Like, what do you, this is not even a conversation right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? But that's not realistic.
No.
But that's the mentality as well.
Yes. My dad was... both his parents had passed away by the time he was 16. So for him, what I realized in my sort of adulthood was my parent didn't have parents past the age of 16, so he didn't know how to parent a kid past that age.
Right.
So he constantly treated us still like we were teenagers. Even when I was like in my 20s, I'd get like come over and we get into an argument and he'd be like kicking me out of the house. I'm like, you can't kick me out of the house. I don't live here anymore, one. Two, like, it's just not a thing. But I realized he had that same mentality where he just sort of still treated us like we were that, like it capped, at that age. And it took me a long time to be like, oh, that's why. Which, I mean, you give them grace at that point, right? Because you're just like, oh, how hard would my life have been had I stopped having parents at the age of 16? And how difficult would my life have been and how it would have shifted. Like, I was 39 when my dad passed away, and it's completely shifted my life. So I can't imagine what that would be like as a teenager.
Yeah.
So that was what I sort of learned later was he didn't know how to parent beyond a certain age because he didn't have parents beyond that age. So I learned how to sort of navigate through that with him and give him some grace because he had been orphaned at the age of 16. So that changed how I saw him as I got older. But as a kid, I didn't get it. Like, it was so funny. He used to, like, like even with like smoking cigarettes, my dad was a smoker. And I'd ask him, I'm like, oh, so Dad, like, you know, I was, say, 10. And I'd be like, Dad, when did you start smoking? Oh, I was 12. And then I'd get to 12, and then he'd, like, jump to 13. And I'm like, you do realize I remember you telling me this already. So, like, he'd always kind of shift how he did it. But it was, like, I think a lot of parenting then was a lot of, like, lying to us about things in certain ways. At least for me, it was like, oh, like, you just pretended that didn't happen, or you pretended you didn't do this, or you pretend. My mom, on the other hand, was very innocent and didn't like smoke a cigarette or drink or do anything. So when she talked from that perspective, she was actually being honest, as opposed to my dad probably did a lot of bad shit and just like lied about it. So it's funny. You just want to like understand them, but they don't always want them to understand you because they're afraid what that might make you do, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, again, I think of like what I want to be as a parent and like how honest you want to be. I think it comes at certain stages. I think he was right in the sense of not telling me too young how young he was when maybe he started, but how honest you want to be as a parent is an interesting topic sometimes, because I think part of it is kind of trying to put your best foot forward, but then there's other parts of it where I think kids really benefit from knowing that we make mistakes and that you learn from them, right? So it's just interesting to think about that perspective of, you know, parenting, of like how much you tell them, how much you don't.
I tell them whatever they want to know. Honestly, if they ask me, I'm not gonna lie. Right. And then not the other day, like I want to say like maybe a couple months ago, they came back from their father's house.
Yeah.
And I guess they were going through, I don't even know, boxes, the basement or whatever it was. And he sent them home my old yearbook and from St. Joe's. And they read through all the comments. And I'm like, was this your wisest choice?
Yeah.
But I was like, it is what it is. And and then also because they're so young, they don't even understand half of what it was saying.
That's so funny.
But I was reading it and I was like, ooh, why would you give them this? Like,
that's hilarious. That's actually pretty funny. Because I think about some of the comments that were in my yearbook, and I don't know if I'd want my kids reading that. Some of it. But,
I don't remember what you wrote, because I do remember reading yours.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, no, I do. Yeah, I think that would be interesting. My kids got a hold of like seeing what some people wrote, because some of it's really like light and playful, and then some of it's probably a little bit more.
Half of it's like, hi, we barely spoke this year. Have a good summer. Why are you signing it?
Yeah, exactly. That's so funny. That is funny. No, I don't know. I think my yearbooks are still at my parents' house. Yeah. It's nothing that I like took with me, so I have a lot of shit that I left there, but that's, now I want to read my yearbooks and see. I'll go send you what you said to me.
I wonder what I wrote to you.
That's so funny. Yeah, no, I bet you I have a few.
I feel like I probably wrote a lot, because I wrote a lot in everybody's year. I was that girl.
To write
like a
story.
Novel.
Yeah. I think I did too. I think I wrote a lot. If I knew the person, I did the cheesy, like I didn't really talk to you either kind of things, but I definitely wrote novels if I felt like I knew you well. That's so funny. Well, I think that this is like a good time to wrap up, unless there's anything you want to share. I feel like we hit a lot of topics. I love that you were able to share that, like, you had moments of feeling stuck, or you do still have moments of feeling stuck. But I think that knowing that you've kind of taken a different trajectory in your life is like pretty awesome. And like, just keep that up, and the stuckness will become unstuck eventually, I think.
Yes. And
you'll get to that point where you get to where you want to be. Professionally, personally, all of the above. I wish all of that for you.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for doing this.
Of course, my pleasure.
I really enjoyed talking to you, and I think other people will really enjoy hearing all the things you had to say. So thank you guys so much for joining. This is a wrap on episode 4. And if you feel like you want to tell your story, get in touch with me, and we're going to keep going with this as much as we can. So thanks for watching, guys. Bye.